Hey, welcome back to Business 101, Introduction to Business. We're now, I guess, about halfway through module number 5 in our exploration of the topic of management. And as you can see from this title slide, in this video, we're looking at management skills. What skills are necessary to excel as a manager? What should we be trying to develop now in our lives in order for us to have the equipment that we need, so to speak, when we are thrust into a managerial role? If we aspire to lead and to manage, what do we really need to be able to do that well? That's what the topic of this particular video is all about. So a little bit of a reminder as we begin this topic of looking at skilled managers. And I would repeat something I think I mentioned in the very first lecture in this series. People don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. I think that's very true. I think that's a profound thing, a profound insight. And when the first time I heard that, I remember instantly in my mind going back through my own history of all the jobs that I left and quit and hated, or should I say that I hated, then left, and quit. And uniformly, I would have to say that this is absolutely true, at least anecdotally in my experience. I didn't leave bad jobs, I left bad bosses. Now, why do we start on that note? So that we can then look at the positive side of this. If none of us aspire to be a bad boss, then what does it take to be a great boss? What does it require to be a great manager? How can I develop those kinds of skills? Because developing those skills may take time, so I should get started now. What skills and how should I start to develop them so that I can be a great manager? Well, the textbook will tell us there's at least 5 different categories of skills for us to pay attention to. And I think that while this list may not be comprehensive in that sense, these are certainly 5 skills we really do need to take seriously. If you aspire to manage and lead others, you will need technical skills. You need to be able to actually do the job. You should know how the job works, and you should have the necessary skills necessary to actually handle the work. How else can you provide an example to your people? How else can you guide them and train them and teach them and identify where they're doing great and where perhaps they need to be able to improve? So in any role, you need to have the actual knowledge and technical skills how to do the job. And that should be, well, quite frankly, relatively self-explanatory, right? Some of us have the experience of having a manager who told us what to do, but we knew they really couldn't do it themselves. What level of respect does that really earn as an employee? You know how you felt about that manager. Now, contrast that, some of us also listening to this lecture, some of you have an experience working for a manager who really did know their stuff. They knew the ins and outs, they had the experience, they had the wisdom, they had the knowledge how to do the ins and outs of every step of the job. And think about the respect you had for that kind of a manager instead. Now, second of all, on this list, you see here that a great manager needs human relations skills, the skills to understand and motivate and unite and lead and compel and get along with people. And many of us have this sad experience of working for a very competent manager who just couldn't deal with people. They just weren't good with people. They were rude, they were blunt, they were brutal when they didn't need to be. They were just keeping it real. But their version of keeping it real meant that everyone around them had their feelings hurt, right? Well, you absolutely need human relations skills to be a great manager. In fact, I also teach here at College of Marin another course on occasion called Human Relations in Business, which is all about the soft skills, as we call it, and how to better and more effectively lead people. I've been teaching those kinds of things at the undergraduate and the graduate level for years now. In my opinion, that is the one thing that really separates the good from the great. More on that later, but you should be able to recognize how crucial that is and why, quite frankly, if you can look yourself in the mirror and understand, you know, this is really an area I need to grow in, well, you should take that seriously, because the good news is, as you start now, you can absolutely improve in your human relations skills. The third bullet point on the slide, conceptual skills, the ability to think in the abstract, diagnose and analyze different situations and see beyond the present situation, to be able to see the big picture as well as how the small immediate fits into the big picture, all those kinds of things. And some of this, of course, is a natural ability that some folks are born with. They're better at it than others. And there's also ways that we can develop this in our lives. Part of this is exactly what you're doing right now, which is you are embracing higher education. Higher education, I am absolutely convinced, is not simply about trying to teach you what to think, but also to try to teach you how to think. How it is that you can get better at thinking in the abstract, diagnosing and analyzing different situations, all these kinds of things. One of the ways that you can start doing that is any time that you are confronted with a problem, try to think from the end in mind. Think with the end and then work backwards. What is the solution you're trying to accomplish? And then think backwards. What will it require to bring that solution into reality? What resources does it require? What people does it require? If it requires people to change their thinking, which people and how do they need to change their thinking? And then how can you construct a framework to come alongside someone and help them adjust their thinking? There's just all sorts of ways we can talk about developing conceptual skills, and beginning with the end in mind is just one of them. Number 4 on the list there, you see decision-making skills. Skills in defining problems and selecting the best courses of action. This is hard, especially for young managers. For young managers, many tend to be hesitant and second guess themselves, and it's very difficult to make a decision. And quite frankly, your employees see that and will interpret that as a lack of self-confidence. And that does not breed respect. It does not breed loyalty. Nobody likes to follow an indecisive boss. When I first was appointed to my very first managerial role years ago, my boss told me, look, part of being a manager means you gotta make the call. You're not always gonna make the right call, and that's okay. You make the wrong call, it just means you gotta clean up the mess. But the absolutely worst thing you can do as a manager is to not make the call. Because if you don't make the call, your people see you as indecisive, and then they lose respect for you. Now, there is such a thing as taking your time to make the right decision, to make the right and best decision. And quite frankly, there's still a deadline on you making that decision, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about, I hope. Now, the 5th in this list is time management skills. Skills associated with the productive use of time. And I tell you what, this is where many, many college students fall down. And quite frankly, when I was an undergraduate student, I have to tell you, I fell down on this as well. I didn't have great time management skills when I was an undergraduate student. It took me years to develop them. And one of the things that inspired me was I looked around me and I saw that I didn't really know a single highly effective professional in business who didn't have an absolutely ruthless stranglehold on their own schedule and their own time management. You know what I'm talking about. People who know their schedule ahead of time. It's all planned out. You want to go chat with him? He says, hey, man, you just can't slide in there and say, hey, you got 15 minutes? I'm sorry, I don't. But I can slot you in for lunch next Tuesday at 1:30. Would that work for you? You know what I'm talking about, right? Someone who really is disciplined in how they manage their schedule. Now, along those lines, allow me to give you some free advice when it comes to time management, okay? This is a free gift. You don't have to pay me, all right? But if this proves useful to you, I call this tip jar advice. After you make your first $1 million, come back to my office and give me a taste, okay? Now, what is this time management technique I'm going to give you for free? Well, let's see. If you're the type of person who is sort of prone to procrastination, okay? And, okay, maybe it's not you, but a friend of yours. You know what I'm talking about? All right. Here's a technique called the Pomodoro technique. And for some of you listening to this, perhaps a few of you speak Italian, and you know what Pomodoro means in Italian. In Italian, Pomodoro means tomato. And the reason why this is called the tomato technique, Pomodoro technique, is because the man who developed it is an Italian American. And when he grew up as a little kid, his mom had an egg timer. You know, one of those timers, magnetic, you stick in the refrigerator. Well, this one was in the shape of a plastic tomato. Okay, that's where it gets its name. Here's the technique. Simple as pie. You have a task in front of you. Let's say you've got to study for an exam. Maybe the midterm exam in this class you need to study for. Okay? So what happens many times? You put it off to the last week before the exam. Then you get up on Saturday morning, you say, I'm going to study all day for that exam. You sit down at 9 o'clock and you sit down with your glass of your mug of coffee and the textbook. You start reading, you make it through maybe 11 minutes, and then your phone goes off. It's a text message. Oops, I better respond to that. And that gets you thinking, I got to update my social media status. Oh, I got to do that. Oh, look at that. That's a really cool photo on the gram. I should take a selfie. And then, what do you know? It's 10 o'clock. You still haven't really gotten anything more than 11 minutes of studying in. Does it sound familiar? Well, here's how the Pomodoro technique can fix that. You take a timer. Any timer will do, including the stopwatch on your smartphone. You set it for 25 minutes. Okay? You can do anything for 25 minutes, can't you? Come on, you're an adult. You can do anything for 25 minutes. Set it for 25 minutes, you start studying. And guess what? The butt doesn't leave the chair until the timer goes off. So, no beverages, no potty breaks, don't play with the dog, no cigarettes, no texts, no phone calls, don't pee, don't go to the potty. You can do anything for 25 minutes. Come on, you're an adult. Hold it for 25 minutes, okay? You study straight through for 25 minutes. Ding, the timer goes off. Now, you set the timer for 5 minutes. You physically force yourself to get out of the seat, even if you want to keep going. Get out of the seat, get away from the desk, do whatever you're going to do for 5 minutes until the bell goes off. Go get your drink, go to the bathroom, play with the dog, whatever you're going to do. Ding, 5 minutes is up. You set it for another 25 minutes, and you're on to your second Pomodoro. I hope this makes sense. Many students I've shared this with have told me this was the most effective thing that got them through college. And so if you struggle with time management, and quite frankly, many people do, okay, maybe not you and me, but that friend that we know, right? You should tell them about this Pomodoro technique and see if it works. For some, it revolutionizes their higher education. For some, it gets them on the right path towards building great time management discipline, which will equip you to manage and lead people in the future. Like I said, that's free tip jar advice, okay? Now, let's get back to our lecture. All right, this last slide in this deck, management skills for the 21st century. What do we really need besides those 5 basic skills we looked at on that previous slide? Well, in today's business world, a manager needs, first, global management skills. They need to be able to navigate foreign markets, understand cultural differences, the motives and practices of foreign rivals and allies. They need to be able to collaborate with others around the world on a real-time basis. This leads to the next bullet point. They need to have skills, very sharply refined skills in leading high-performing teams. You need to be able to maximize employee engagement. You need to build, grow, and get the best from your diverse teams. You need to be able to motivate, handle conflict, adapt, and evolve teams. You know that teamwork is the way that business gets done in today's world. And to be able to lead high-performing teams is a skill that is incredibly valuable in today's workplace. Third, you need to be able to cultivate value-driven corporate culture. This is really where all of the discussion and talk is in modern business today. How do we create corporate cultures within our firms that lead from values, ethics, and a sense of purpose? Purpose beyond simply getting an acceptable rate of return on invested capital, but actual purpose in accomplishing great things in the world around us. Towards that end, how do we create psychologically safe environments for our employees to thrive in, not just in their role in our company, but throughout their career? This is how you build loyalty with your employees. This is how you build the reputation as a great boss that folks will follow no matter where you go, rather than the bad boss that they leave, rather than leaving a bad job. Now, I think you can see sort of where we're going with this, right? That while there are a baseline of skills that any manager needs, there are higher levels of skills that I am encouraging each one of us to aspire to if we really do have the ambition to lead and to manage others in our careers in the future. This is a taste, this is a flavor for the kinds of things that are necessary to meet the challenge. Quite honestly, management is not for everyone. But for those of us who are willing to put in the work with ourselves, with our own discipline, with our skills, to be able to forge ourselves into great leaders and great managers, the opportunities are limitless in the world today. I hope this helps understanding a little bit of what it takes to be a great manager, the skills that are necessary. We'll see you in the next lecture.